Hey everyone, my name's Tim Day, and while I'm no design expert, I can tell you about some personal experience I've had with design out in the wild. Now, one of the big problems I've experienced with traditional planning methods in most organizations I've worked in is that when you're not sure about what the final goal is or what your final objective is, it leads to a little bit of paralysis where no one wants or feels capable of doing anything for fear of doing the wrong thing. Organizations that really rely on linear planning, tend to become very reactive because they need that defined end state to work back from. They never figure out what their first step should be, and because they never take the first step, there's no movement, and because there's no movement, they tend to lose the initiative. Meanwhile, the situation, as we know, will keep changing. And they'll never be able to get ahead of the problem to define what that objective is. So one of the ways I've used to try and break through this institutional inertia is to apply a design philosophy, not necessarily design methodologies to come up with a plan, but to use a design approach as the plan itself. When you get a group to approach a problem, through a reflective design practice, you get them to physically explore the situation, to actively go out and collect information, to build intimate knowledge and understanding. You figure out that the further along the path you are, the more opportunities and the better approaches will emerge from that path. You're better able to see what is coming in the future, because you're further out ahead of your problem. And most importantly, the more influence you have on shaping the future. If you're static, trying to look at the problem from the outside, hoping that the conditions won't change, you'll be stuck in that paralysis of never wanting to move. So if you're driving head down towards a defined end state, you're probably going to miss options or better approaches or opportunities that emerge, as you were to move forward. So when I've had people, reluctant to take that first step or to move forward, what I do is I try and reframe the problem to not look at the entirety of the problem, to not define that final solution, but to really look and ask them, what's the first step we have to perform? What's the very first thing we have to do, regardless of what future objective or future goal we may want to achieve? That's a chunk that they can sink their teeth into and wrap their head around. Then you focus on those activities, you take that first step, and by taking that step, you open up adjacent possibilities. New opportunities and pathways will emerge after taking that first step. Once the organization is moving, a lot of your decisions will then be, okay, how do we maintain momentum? The decisions become a little bit simpler, and it's more about steering minor adjustments than the big muscle movement of getting a big organization movement. As you move along and different pathways open up, you start to ask yourself, okay, what's working here? What's not? And you continue to make these minor adjustments based on the design philosophy of an emergent, reflective practice. Now, none of this is easy, and for big, massive problems in big organizations, this may be a bit too much. But in smaller groups, I think you can influence so that they use design not only to develop a plan, but use design as the plan itself, as the philosophical underpinning of how you approach your problems. If you like this talk and you think you might be able to use it in the future, that's great. If you're interested in more about design philosophies, remember, like and subscribe. Cheers. We'll see you later.